Hey guys, welcome to the first of the series of videos that you are going to watch for the flipped lesson on sequences and series. Now before we could get started, I just want you to consider the following question and see if you can do it. Pause the video and find the sum of all the numbers from 1 to 100. Now hopefully you didn't actually pause the video. Hopefully you realize by now that I'm just kidding. I don't think you should have to add the numbers from 1 to 100. That would be ridiculous, don't you think? So what we're going to talk about today is how we can get to doing this without having to simply do 1 plus 2 plus 3 and so on. Now, to get to that, let's start with the following situation. Let's say every day a radio station asks a question for a prize of 150. If the caller, or the fifth caller, does not answer the question correctly, the prize money increases by $150 each day until someone correctly answers the question. Okay, so if this happens, we can make a list of the prize amounts for a week from Monday to Friday if no one answers correctly. And if we do that, we get the following values. You see, on Monday we start with the 150 all the way up to Friday, $750 if no one answers correctly. Now, these prize amounts form what is called a sequence, and in a second we'll define that word sequence. More specifically, each amount in that sequence is called a term, which we will also define in an arithmetic sequence. And you'll notice if I go back, to get the next term, each term is 150 more than the one that it was previously. So we just have to add 150 to get to the next number. So before we could talk about what that all means, we should define the terms that you will be dealing with a lot. And the first one is sequence. The term sequence refers to a list of numbers in a specific order. So if I go back to that list we made, if this is a sequence, you can't just write, for example, 150 and then 600 and then 450 and then 750. Even though they're all terms of the same sequence, a sequence is numbers in a specific order. And then each number in the sequence is considered a term. So get yourself familiar with those two words. And then what we're going to be dealing with is something called an arithmetic sequence. There is actually another type of sequence called a geometric sequence, but we will be dealing with the arithmetic type. An arithmetic sequence is basically a sequence in which everything is a number. It's a sequence in which each term after the first is found by adding a constant, and we're going to refer to this constant with the letter D. So when you see D, that is called the common difference. It's a difference between two terms. So in our first sequence, 150 and 300 were the first two terms. The common difference, D, was 150. So we're going to explain a couple parts of what a sequence is. So let's say I take the sequence from before, and it could actually keep going. The first term of our sequence is 150. That's this number here. Now, to denote the first term of a sequence in general, we're going to use the term A sub 1. That represents the first term in a sequence. Okay, so if we wanted to know A2, that means what is the second term of our sequence. And we know from looking at it that our second term is 300. Okay, now let's say I wanted to find the third, fourth, and fifth terms. What they would end up being is 450, 600, and 750, because I know the common difference is 150, and that gets added on to the previous one. Okay, now in general, this symbol here, A sub n, will represent a general term where n can be any number. So what this means is the nth term of a sequence. N can be any number. Okay? Now, sequences can follow and go on forever. And if we want to, we can calculate as many terms as we want as long as we know the common difference, D. So to do that, let's say I give you the sequence 2, 5, 8, 11, and 14. The next three terms would be 17, 20, and 23. And we know that because the common difference between the first terms is 3. Okay? Now to find the common difference, all I have to do is subtract any term from the term that follows it. And keep in mind that these common differences may be negative. So what this video has been is a basic introduction to the term sequence and what a sequence is. The next video will deal with how to use sequences to make calculations.